Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together. Part 9 of the Spirit's Book, written by Allan Kardec in Paris, France, and published in the year 1857. We're on page 175 out of 429, which means we probably have 11 more episodes to go on this. So I hope that you are enjoying it. I am very much enjoying reading this book and getting the information. Some of it is filling in the blanks for me, and only just 1 or 2 points. And if I have a contention with something, I'll mention it. Just like last week with the twin flame thing. I'm not sure that these spirits are 100% in the know on everything. They're just spirits, people who passed before us. They know the majority of what they know based on what they've heard or researched, but I feel like some of the information isn't 100% right. But for the most part, 95% of it is. So we're going to continue. Remembrance of corporeal existence. Question 304. Does spirit remember his corporeal existence? The spirit's answer, yes. Having lived many times as a human being, he remembers what he has been and often smiles pityingly at the follies of his past. And Allan Kardec adds a sentence to that. He says, as a man who has reached the age of reason smiles at the follies of his youth and the silliness of his childhood. Okay, question 305. Does the remembrance of his corporeal existence present itself to a spirit complete and spontaneously immediately after his death? The spirits say, no, it comes back to him little by little, in proportion as he fixes his attention upon it, as objects gradually become visible out of a fog. Question 306. Does a spirit remember the details of all the events of his life? Does he take in the whole of his life at a single retrospective glance? The spirits answer, he remembers the things of his life more or less distinctly and in detail, according to the influence they have exercised on his state as a spirit. But you can easily understand that there are many things in his life to which he attaches no importance and which he does not even seek to remember. And Allan Kardec, he follows up with a question, could he remember them if he wished to do so? And the answer is, he has the power of recalling the most minute details of every incident of his life, and even of his thoughts. But when no useful purpose would be served by exerting this power, he does not exert it. All right. Question 307. In what way does his past life present itself to a spirit's memory? Is it through an effort of his imagination, or is it like a picture displayed before his eyes? The spirits answer, it comes back to him in both ways. All the actions which he has an interest in remembering appear to him as though they were present. The others are seen by him more or less vaguely in his thought, or are entirely forgotten. The more dematerialized he is, the less importance does he attach to material things. It has often happened to you, on evoking some wandering spirit who has just left the earth, to find that he remembers neither the names of persons whom he liked, nor details which to you appear to be important. He cares but little about them, and they have faded from his memory, but you always find that he perfectly remembers the main facts of his life, which have conduced to his intellectual and moral progress. Question 308. Does the spirit remember all the existences which have preceded the one he has just quitted? The spirits say, his entire past is spread out before him like the stages already accomplished by a traveler. But as we've told you, he does not remember all of his past actions with absolute precision. He remembers them more or less clearly in proportion to the influence they've had upon his present state. As to his earliest existences, those which may be regarded as constituting the period of spirit infancy, they are lost in vagueness and disappear in the night of oblivion. Question 309. How does the spirit regard the body he has just quitted? Spirits say, as an uncomfortable garment that hampered him, and he is delighted to be rid of it. A follow-up question. What feeling is produced in him by seeing the decomposition of his body? The spirits say almost always that of indifference, as something about which he no longer cares. 310. After a time, does the spirit recognize the mortal remains or other objects that once belonged to him? Spirits answer, sometimes he does so, but this depends on more or less elevated point of view from which he regards terrestrial things. Question 311. Is the spirit's attention attracted to the material relics of himself by the respect entertained for those objects by his survivors? And does he see this respect with pleasure? The spirit's answer: a spirit is always gratified at being held in kindly remembrance by those he has left. The objects thus preserved in remembrance of him serve to recall him to the memory of those by whom they are preserved, but it is the action of their thought which attracts him, and not those objects. Question 312. Do spirits retain the remembrance of sufferings endured by them in their last corporeal existence? The spirits say they frequently do so, and this remembrance makes them realize all the more vividly the worth of the felicity they enjoy as spirits. Question 313. Does he who has been happy down here regret his terrestrial enjoyments on quitting the earth? All right, I had to read that one to myself for a minute. The spirit's answer: only spirits of inferior degree can regret material satisfactions in harmony with impurity of nature, and which are expiated by suffering. For spirits of higher degrees of elevation, the happiness of eternity is immeasurably preferable to the ephemeral pleasures of the earthly life. And then Allan Kardec has a little comment. He says, as the adult despises watch constituted the delights of his infancy. I don't think anyone despises their babyhood. I mean, even if you do remember it, do you despise it? I hated that mobile in my crib. I mean, I despise is like quite a strong word. That's crazy, right? I maybe that was just translated wrong. We have to believe. Why would he say that? I hated my diapers. I mean, what about? Okay, whatever. Question 314. When a man who has commenced a series of important labors in view of some useful end has seen these labors interrupted by death, does he in the other world feel regret at having had to leave them unfinished? The spirits answer, no, because he sees that others are destined to complete them. On the contrary, he endeavors to act upon the minds of other human beings so as to lead them to carry on what he had begun. His aim while upon the earth was to be useful to the human race. His aim is the same in the spirit world. Question 315. When a man has left behind him works of art or of literature, does he preserve for them in the other life the interest he took in them while living upon the earth? And the spirits say he judges them from another point of view, according to his elevation, and he often blames what he formerly admired. Huh. Okay. Question 316. Does a spirit take an interest in the labors which are going on upon the earth in the progress of the arts and sciences? And the spirits answer, that depends on his degree of elevation and on the mission he may have to fulfill. What appears magnificent to you often appears a very small matter to the spirits. If they take an interest in it, it is only as a man learning takes an interest in the work of a schoolboy. They examine whatever indicates the elevation of incarnated spirits and mark the degree of their progress. Question 317. Do spirits after death retain any preference for their native country? And the spirits answer, for spirits of elevated degree, their country is the universe. In regard to the earth, their only preference is for the place in which there is the greatest number of persons with whom they are in sympathy. So Allan Kardec adds a very long paragraph. He says, the situation of spirits and their way of looking at things are infinitely varied according to their various degrees of moral and intellectual development. Spirits of a high order generally make but short sojourns upon the earth. All that goes on here is so paltry in comparison with the grandeurs of infinity. The matters to which men attribute most importance appear to them so puerile that the things of this earth have very little interest for them, unless they have been sent to it for the purpose of quickening the progress of its people. Spirits of lower degree visit our earth more frequently, but they judge its affairs from a higher point of view than that of their corporeal life. The common ruck of spirits may be said to be sedentary. Among us, they constitute the great mass of the ambient population of the invisible world. They retain very much the same ideas, tastes, and tendencies which they had while clothed with the corporeal envelope, and mix themselves up with our gatherings, our occupations, our amusements, in all of which they take a part more or less active according to their character. Being no longer able to satisfy their material passions, they take delight in witnessing the excesses of those who abandon themselves to their indulgence, to which they excite them by every means in their power. Among their number are some who are better disposed and who see and observe in order to acquire knowledge and to advance. All right, question 318. Do spirits modify their ideas in the other life? The spirits answer, very considerably. A spirit's ideas undergo very great modifications in proportion as he becomes dematerialized. He may sometimes retain the same ideas for a long period, but little by little the influence of matter diminishes, and he sees more clearly. It is then that he seeks for the means of advancing. Question 319. As spirits had already lived in the other world before being incarnated, why do they feel astonished on re-entering that world? The answer of the spirits, this feeling is only momentary and results from the confusion that follows their waking. They soon recover knowledge of themselves as the memory of the past comes back to them and the impression of the terrestrial life becomes effaced. Okay, here's the next section. Commemoration of the dead, funerals. Question 320. Are spirits affected by the remembrance of those whom they have loved on earth? The spirits answer, very much more so than you are apt to suppose. If they are happy, this remembrance adds to their happiness. If they are unhappy, it affords them consolation. Question 321. Are spirits specially attracted towards their friends upon the earth by the return of the day which, in some countries, is consecrated to the memory of those who have quitted this life? Do they make it a point to meet those who on that day go to pray beside the graves where their mortal remains are interred? The spirits answer to the call of affectionate remembrance on that, lay as they do on any other day. Follow-up question. Do they, on that day, go specially to the burial place of their corporeal body? Spirits answer, they go to the cemeteries in greater numbers on that day because called thither by the thoughts of a greater number of persons. But each spirit goes solely for his own friends and not for the crowd of those who care nothing about him. Follow-up question. In what form do they come to these places, and what would be their appearance if they could render themselves visible to us? Spirits answer, the form and appearance by which they were known during their lifetime. Question 322. Do the spirits of those who are forgotten and whose graves no one visits go to the cemeteries notwithstanding this neglect? Do they feel regret at seeing that no one remembers them? The spirits say, what is the earth to them? They are only linked to it by the heart. If upon the earth no affection is felt for a spirit, there's nothing that can attach him to it. He has the whole universe before him. Question 323. Does a visit made to his grave give more pleasure to his spirit than a prayer offered for him by friends in their own home? The spirits answer, a visit made to his grave is a way of showing to his spirit that he is not forgotten. It is a sign. As I have told you, it is the prayer that sanctifies the action of the memory. The place where it is offered is of little importance if it comes from the heart. Whew. Cross off going to Grandpa's grave off the list. Because I love him and he knows, but I don't need to go see where, his body is. It's kind of weird, right? Anyway, question 324. When statues or other monuments are erected to persons who have quitted this life, are the spirits of those persons present at their inauguration, and do they witness such ceremonies with pleasure? Spirits say, spirits often attend on such occasions when able to do so, but they attach less importance to the honors paid to them than to the remembrance in which they are held. Question 325. What makes some persons desire to be buried in one place rather than in another? Do they go thither more willingly, offer their death? What does that even mean? Do they go thither more willingly? I'm going to read that again. I think there's a mistake here. Okay, question 325. What makes some persons desire to be buried in one place rather than another? Do they go thither more willingly, offer their death? I don't know. And it is a sign of inferiority. Oh, and is it a sign of inferiority on the part of a spirit that he should attribute importance to a matter so purely material? They say that desire is prompted by a spirit's affection for certain places and is a sign of moral inferiority. What? To an elevated spirit, what is one spot of earth more than another? Does he not know that his soul will be reunited with those who he loves, even though their bones are separated? Okay. I don't think it's moral inferiority. Do you guys? I mean, that sounds so judgmental and snarky to me. Like, I don't know. Okay, anyway, it's not a massive importance, but I don't know. Follow-up question, is it futile to bring together the mortal remains of all the members of a family in the same burial place? And the spirits answer, such reunion is of little importance to the spirits, but it is useful to men whose remembrance of those who've gone before them is thus strengthened and rendered more serious. Oh, okay. Question 326. When the soul has returned into spirit life, is it gratified by the honors paid to its mortal remains? The spirits say, When a spirit has reached a certain degree of advancement, he is purified from terrestrial vanities, for he comprehends their futility. But there are many spirits who, in the early period of their return to the other life, take great pleasure in the honors paid to their memory, or are much disturbed at finding themselves forgotten, for they still retain some of the false ideas they held during their earthly life. Question 327. That's a big one. Do spirits ever attend their own funerals? They say, spirits very often do so, but in many cases without understanding what's going on, being still in the state of confusion that usually follows death. By the way, that's why you need to bury people 3 days after they die. No cremation before 3 days. Because of that confusion stage, and also the fact that the body can still feel for 3 days after. Ugh, gross, right? Oh, the follow-up question. Do they feel flattered by the presence of a large concourse of persons at their funeral? Spirits answer, more or less so, according to the sentiment which has brought them together. Okay. Question 328. Is a spirit ever present at the meetings of his heirs? The spirits answer, almost always. Providence has so ordained it for the spirit's own instruction and for the chastisement of selfishness. The deceased is thus enabled to judge of the worth of the protestations of affection and devotion addressed to him during his life, and his disappointment on witnessing the rapacity of those who dispute the property he has left is often very great. But the punishment of greedy heirs will come in due time. Yeah. Rapacity could also maybe be pronounced rapacity. Rapacity. I don't know if I said that right. But I think it means raping, the will of the person. Disputing the property is like raping his will. The rapacity. It's a good word. I have to look it up later. Remember it. Question 329. Is the respect which mankind in all ages and among all peoples has always instinctively shown to the dead to be attributed to an intuitive belief in a future state of existence? The answer: the one is the natural consequence of the other. Were it not for that belief, such respect would have neither object nor meaning. All right. I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to read the next part, which is chapter 7.